The Unfiltered Athlete episode 17 is here, and this week Olympic bronze medal rugby player Dylan Sage jumped into the conversation all the way from South Africa. Training, sevens, 15s and national expectations were all part of this week's discussion. Please drop us a like and follow and help us expand and bring you more sporting stories. Here's what Dylan had to say. Right, okay, welcome back to the Unfiltered Athlete. This is episode 17. Here with me today is a South African rugby player, Olympian, bronze medalist, Dylan Sage. Dylan, thanks for joining. Appreciate your
pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Your time. Yeah, and obviously it's a little reschedule considering that the app wasn't working the other day, so we've made it, which is good that we're here. Yeah, so Dylan, basically, thank you for coming on. I appreciate you giving me, your time and basically allowing me to sort of talk to you about your experience, your sport, your upbringing, etc. I think it's cool to get as many different stories as possible. And yeah, basically, to kickstart us off, I just want to sort of ask you how was your upbringing in South Africa? I know that, like I said, it is a very sporting nation, and obviously you turned out to be a rugby player, but was it always rugby for you? And was there anything else that you did while you were growing up?
Upbringing was, I would say, quite normal in a sense that, sort of normal schooling. Went to this junior school, high school, Wynberg Junior, Wynberg High. Sport was always quite big. Rugby and cricket mostly. And I played a bit of other sports. I surfed quite a bit. I was slalom skier, skied quite a bit, but the family was quite a water sport family, but it was mostly cricket and rugby. And I pretty much started that from when you start school. I mean, cricket and rugby are probably the two sort of dominant sports at the school that I was at. I played that from the start. I was actually more of a cricketer at school than a rugby player, to be honest. But seemed to just form to rugby at the end. But I had a very sporty family. All my cousins play sport. My brother was a good sportsman, so it's kind of father was a good sportsman. Everyone there, so it's kind of built into the whole structure of the family, really.
So you obviously very sporting family and a rugby orientated family. So do you feel that you were able to make your own decision and go into rugby, or do you feel there was more expectation to follow in the footsteps and go into rugby?
Maybe to a certain extent. It's probably a little bit of it's family competition, I guess. You want to always be better than your cousins or whatever, or your dad was a rugby player, so you want to be a good rugby player. But no, I wouldn't say there's any pressure really. Like I said, I was actually more of a cricketer at school, and I thought I'd go more into that after school, but it just kind of didn't lose passion for cricket, but I just didn't have quite the same enthusiasm when I left school. So I went straight into the rugby world. But I mean, it was helpful having a sporty family, because you always prioritize sport. So that was never a challenge for me to have to go and, with practices or sort of school camps and school rugby clinics and stuff like that was always quite easy.
And at what moment was the realization that you could go further and then end up playing for your country?
Man, it definitely wasn't at school. I actually left when I left school to go to varsity. Didn't really have a rugby career by any means. I played high level rugby at school and high level cricket at school, but then afterwards there was no pro contracts, nothing coming. So I only became a pro when I was 23. I went to UCT and played there for a while, and probably maybe in my second year at varsity, when I was under 20, that's when it kind of all clicked. And it kind of started coming right. Those things just kind of, everything started connecting well, started playing well, and it just kind of flowed into where I ended up. I went to spend a year in Australia at an academy there, rugby academy, the Western Force. And then I came back and then played a bit of university rugby again. And I'd say after 20, it all kind of I started to develop a little bit faster. When I was 19, things started to click a little bit.
And Western Fort, is that Perth? Is that in Western
Yeah,
Australia,
yeah,
right?
it's in Perth. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, I used to live there myself. I lived in Perth in 2009, 2010. So I used to
Oh,
play
nice. Okay.
water polo for Freo, for Fremantle. So yeah, so I mean, literally, I think Perth is still one of my favourite cities worldwide. I absolutely love it there. The lifestyle
Yeah,
and obviously the opportunities there, especially for young kids, is just brilliant.
yeah, I enjoyed it. It was obviously I was quite young. I was
Um,
only 20, but
so
it was really fun.
yeah, that's great city for sure. Is there a lot of similarities between Perth and Cape Town?
Yeah, I think Australia and South Africa culturally are quite similar. Obviously, there's nuances and differences, but yeah, it's quite easy going there. Things I found it quite easy to live there, and quite similar to Cape Town. A little bit not quite the same. I'd say Cape Town's more like a maybe a Sydney kind of thing, but I mean quite similar.
Nice, nice. And so with your rugby career, were you always sevens or were you 15s predominantly, or was there a certain time that you transitioned from one to the other?
I started in 15s, played 15s through varsity, then went to sevens, played a few years of sevens, then went to 15s, and then went back to sevens. So I've jumped back and forth.
And at what point were you sort of guaranteed your spots for Rio when you qualified for the Olympic Games?
Pretty late. That was actually my first season with the sevens. Um, Spent a couple months in the academy there when I went. So I went from varsity straight to the sevens, and I was in the academy for a while. And I eventually got into the pro squad. They had a squad of about 20 guys. And yeah, it was only right. I played my full season, and the Olympics was right after the season. So I think it was in like, I would say July, August time, somewhere around there, maybe August. You didn't know you were in the squad until basically a week or two before. Obviously, we had a camp, but your biggest squads. We had 25 guys, I think, in the Olympic squad or something like that. And then obviously I cut it down because they could only take, I think it was 13 at the time. So yeah, I mean, you kind of only knew like a week before if you were in or not.
Yeah. And was it always a dream of yours to go to the Olympics, or was it more so to play for South Africa in the 15s?
It was definitely a to play 15s for South Africa at the start of mine. Obviously, I was always fairly good at sevens. I always played sevens well. But obviously, when you're growing up, you want to play for the Springboks, of course. Yeah, no, Olympics was not really on the radar. I mean, as a
Yeah.
rugby player, you don't really think about the Olympics. So it wasn't really a thing that I ever focused on. But obviously, when the chance came that they were introduced the sevens to the Olympics, obviously then everyone wanted to go, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what one thing I wanted to sort of get across was I want to know, or I want to know from you to sort of talk about it in layman's terms, sort of dumb it down for everyone else that's listening. What is the difference between the training protocols of 15s and sevens, so union and sevens, and how how easy was it for you to transition from the 15s into the sevens style of training?
Yeah, so obviously, number one is obviously less players in the field, so means a bit more space. So sevens is a bit more, cardiovascular kind of training. So obviously, you need to be. It's more of a running fitness and being able to cover space. So you're moving more on the field. That's obviously in 15s. So different kind of training in like you got to be, I would say, fitter in a certain sense. So the training in 15s can be quite structured. It's a lot more, you know, based around set piece and going through long phases. So being able to have a structure that can withstand a long period of time, where seven's a lot more fast paced. There's a lot less phases. It's a lot more unstructured. So that's kind of a bit of a difference. But yeah, I'd say it's just a lot. Wouldn't say it's harder. 15s is very hard as well. But just from a cardio perspective, you're doing a lot more in the sevens because you're obviously covering more space. and it's a lot more unstructured. So it's a lot more reactionary than what 15s can be sometimes.
Yeah, I know that I do go and watch the sevens when they come to Dubai. It is
Mm.
so fast paced, and that's what I was just going to ask. What level of running do you do per week, training wise, in terms of like volume, and how much of that volume is sprints, how much of it's more sort of like longer endurance based runs, and what's the difference between the two? Between sevens and 15s. Like, is there obviously I get there's probably a lot more running for sevens because it is just so fast paced, but
Mm.
do you still have to do a lot for 15s as well?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, 15s is it doesn't look like it all the time, but it's it's tough. It's 80 minutes and it's faster than it looks. On sometimes it can look a little slow on the from the stands on the TV, but it's especially when you start getting into that higher level of rugby, URC, Super Rugby, International Rugby. That the game is quick and it doesn't always look as quick, but it's very very fast. Yeah, so it depends what time of season it would be. So obviously off season you're doing a lot more running, fitness based stuff. You're trying to build that foundation in going into the season. In season training, you'll have your hard sessions, but obviously you won't be as long as what your preseason was. They'll be more focused on actual structure and certain things you want to get right for tournaments. Whereas off season is about getting strong, getting fit, and then you start getting into your patterns of formations and your structures and all the rest. So preseason for the sevens used to be brutal. It was we used to hate that preseason. It used to be pretty long, a lot of running. I couldn't tell you exactly how many we did in a week, how long we ran in a week, but I'm sure I used to have those stats, but it's been a while. But yeah, preseason, I should say, was a lot of running, a lot of wrestling, a lot of gym work, a lot of rugby based wrestling skills. So it's that fighting in contact, ripping balls, all that kind of stuff. So we mix all of that kind of together. We would have our running sessions. We do some track running. We do a lot of just pure conditioning based drills. We run some hills every now and then. We do some speed work. Speed work and fitness was always kind of separate. We would do our speed sessions, would be a lighter session. It would just be more quick, fast paced stuff. We wouldn't actually get too tired. Fitness was just for pure building that fitness. Um, 15s then was also you had just less so as much running. We didn't do as much, and also 15s you got a lot more diversity of players in terms of you got some heavier guys, some lighter guys, but the range is further. So it's a bit more specialized for certain players and individuals, whereas sevens, there's not as much of that range. So you're kind of keeping most of the training doesn't really get split ever, whereas 15s there'll be a lot more split. So your wings would do a different kind of fitness than the props would do, and the locks would do different fitness than some of the centers would do. So that would be a bit more of just a not a mix and match, but they'd obviously have to split how they would train those people. But sevens is kind of you all have to do a lot of different jobs. So that's why that training would be quite similar.
And when it comes to the obviously the difference between running and stuff, I also want to ask the question in terms of what's the gym format for both as well? Is there a big difference between the gym sessions for sevens as opposed to the 15s as well? And is there any expectation on you to be a specific weight to play your position in sevens, whereas you might be able to get away with being, a bit heavier, a bit chunkier for your 15s position?
So I think a lot of your gym training comes down to your conditioning coach. So every conditioning coach has a different um, formula to success that they have, a different what they feel like works and what they want to use. So a lot of it depends on how or what I should say the conditioning coach wants to achieve. Um, I'd say sevens was a lot of more fast paced gym, more explosive work. 15s is a lot of foundational strength, but there's not that much difference between the two. The gym sessions will look kind of similar. Now it will change in 15s. The props would have to do slightly more neck work, shoulder work because they're scrumming a lot, same as the locks. The wings might do a bit more agility stuff, more air, air kind of gym stuff like jumping and all that kind of stuff. So they'll split a little bit in the 15s how you train in the gym. Like I said, just certain positions require certain techniques and things. So that's why they'll change it up. Whereas sevens, there'll be a little bit of that, but much less because you kind of have the roles are more simplified.
Oh yeah. So with your sevens career, were you able to be fully professional to focus solely on the training and being an athlete, or did you have to work alongside as well to sort of support your livelihood?
Okay, I'll jump back to the last question quickly because I forgot the weight thing. Yeah, obviously they monitor your weight quite carefully. They
Yeah.
monitor your body fat and all the rest of it. So they're quite strict on that. Sevens, I was a bit lighter, 50. I'm not that much lighter. I'd say I was probably 96, 95, 96 for sevens. I was probably about 98 for 15s. So not that much of a difference. I was a forward in
Yeah.
sevens, so it kind of translates over to a center in 15s. Didn't want to be too heavy. If I got to 100, I felt a little bit sluggish. So 98 was kind of the sweet spot when I was playing 15s. 98 for sevens was a little bit heavy for me. So 95 was kind of my perfect area. So they are a bit different. You're taking a lot more hits in 15s. So you're trying to pack on a bit more muscle, a bit more size, but it just depends on your position. But yeah, I was slightly heavier for 15s, but can't be too heavy because, I mean, you got to balance, being explosive, be able to move as fast as you can, but also have the weight behind you as well. So it's a tricky one. Then if you play professional rugby in South Africa, you're pretty much you're a complete pro. So no, never had to. Well, I mean, varsity times when you're not a pro yet, obviously while working while you're at varsity, sure. But once you sign your first pro contract, you're a professional. You get paid pretty well in South Africa for rugby. So obviously depends who you are and where you are and how you play. So, salaries in rugby are change from club to club, national team, people get paid different contracts, but you're able to, you full on know another job.
Nice. And how many hours a day were you roughly training? Is it like sort of like 5-6 days a week, 4 or 5 hours a day, or is it less? Is it more? What's the sort of the typical range?
So that obviously will also depend on what time of year it is, but let's say a normal just in season, if we're going to get a little camp before a tournament, we'd always train Monday, Tuesday. We'd be off on a Wednesday and then train Thursday, Friday. Monday will be, most days would average out to be probably 5 or 6 hours. Some days maybe longer. Your Tuesdays are always long. Your Thursdays were long, and your Mondays were slightly shorter, and your Fridays were quite short. Monday was you'd have one tough session in the morning. Then the rest of the sessions would be more admin. So your meetings would be admin, and then your training blocks would be more skill based. So we do a tough session in the morning. Then we'd go into a meeting. Our field sessions then would be a little bit of a speed session to start, and then we go into a bit of a more skill-based session, so low intensity. Tuesdays are always our heavy work days, so we do 2 field sessions that day, 2 very hard field sessions, and then we do a gym session, and we probably have 2 meetings in that day as well. Wednesday you're off, so you did your own thing on a Wednesday. Try not to do too much on an off day, just because you got the Thursday and the Friday coming. Thursday was a speed day, so speed and attack day. So Tuesday was defense based, Thursday was attack based. So we do slightly more. You do quite a bit of running on both days. So you do 2 field sessions on the Thursday, less intense, just more of an attack focus, and you have a gym session. Friday would usually be a mixed bag depending on how the week was. You do one field session, and you usually one fitness session and a gym session, depending on how what they wanted to achieve that week. So sometimes a Friday would be a bit more toned down. Sometimes it would be quite a heavy send off for the weekend. And then obviously you're off for the week, unless you were traveling. But usually we're obviously off for a week. So it would really depend on your level of intensity in your trainings and how long your week was. Would depend on what time of year it is. So if we have a tournament on the Saturday and Sunday, we can't go balls to the wall in that week.
Yeah.
It's going to be quite a mellow week. You're going to have one hard session, a Tuesday where you work, and then your Thursdays will be more speed and attack integrated. Your Monday would be a complete, just a flash out session, and your Friday would be a captain's run. Then, for example, preseason, it'll be hard all 4 days. So that you might only have maybe your Thursday would be a bit more toned down, but Monday, Tuesday, and Friday would be tough. So it just depends. But I'd say you'd probably average out 5 or 6 hours a day, because it's also you get to the point where you're overtraining as well, and it's a fine balance for our conditioning coaches to balance out being as fit as you can, but also being as healthy as you can be as well. Because you also have guys that are dealing with injuries. You don't want to get injured. You don't want to push too much that you're getting injured. So it's that fine balance of, are we doing too much or are we doing too little? You've got to try and find that sweet spot.
Yeah. And when you are playing of a weekend, like that week leading up to the games, like obviously you are going to train, but what's the level of like intensity in terms of contact? If do you scrimmage at all, like, or is it solely all just fine tuning? Do you do any sort of, what's the word? Do you actually play against each other properly within that week, or is it just sort of too much of a risk of injury before playing?
So sevens wise, not that much contact. We'll do a little bit of contact on a Tuesday. 15s, it was usually a Tuesday session as well, where there'd be some contact. It's never full on. It does get a bit intense because the guys start getting a bit, someone tackles someone a little bit too hard, and now the levels always increase. But we try not to be silly, because also, if it's the week of a game, the guys are usually quite chill, because you don't want to cause any issues. But there'll be, in the weeks leading up to a game, or in that week, we usually stay away from too much contact, because it's the risk and reward factor becomes a bit skewed.
Yeah, absolutely. And what would you say the injury rate is actually like between the two as well, between the sevens and between the 15s? Because every time I've watched a bit of sevens, the main injuries that I see come up is running so fast that someone always pulls up with a hammy, whereas obviously in 15s, it seems to be a lot more sort of, head trauma kind of things. Is it, do you come across these kind of injuries a lot in training, or is it usually just in the games that you do get these major sort of injuries that come up?
No, it happens in training. Less so in training than in a game, because obviously it's not full on 100% go in training, but it does happen every now and then. Yeah, I'd say sevens, more soft tissue is usually what gets a lot of guys. 15s, because there's just more contact in 15s. There's a lot more of your sort of contact injuries. But I mean, there's anomalies on both sides, but usually you'll find probably more soft tissue in the sevens, more contact in the 15s. But that's what I was going back to earlier. It's that fine balance of, it's upon the coaching staff to find that balance, that you're training hard enough, but you're not also getting injured. But yeah, rugby, I mean, anyone who plays rugby knows it's part of the game. So it's not really a matter of if you get injured, it's a matter of when. So you just have to, you get used to it after a while.
Have you had many major injuries, or?
Yeah, I've had few surgeries. I've had all soft tissue stuff. I've had a couple broken bones. Yeah, I've had some bad ones.
What was your worst, and how long did it sort of keep you out of the game for?
The worst one, well, I mean, my career ender was my knee infection, but that wasn't really a rugby related injury. My worst one was my ankle. I dislocated my ankle at the beginning of 2020. playing Super Rugby for the Bulls. First game of the season, actually. And that kept me out for about a year,
Oh no.
about 9 months to a year, but only really came right after about 18 months. That took a long time. I've had both arms broken. Actually, broken bones actually aren't that bad. That's not the problem. It's the ligament one that you got to worry about. Um, I've had I've had plenty. I think I'm on to my 12th
Yeah.
surgery at the moment, counting 12 surgeries. But yeah, the knee was the one that actually put me
Jesus.
out forever. Yeah, the knee was one that put me out forever. I couldn't play after that. But that wasn't really a rugby related one. The actual rugby related worst one was the ankle.
And what? So you said you got a knee infection. Is that what you said? Is that how did that happen?
Bit of a mystery, that one. We're not quite sure. It happened
Really?
while I was playing rugby. It was one of the tournaments we were at. Yeah, they weren't quite sure. They think that there was an infection somewhere. It could be anywhere. Could be a cut in your body somewhere that got infected. Can come from like a tooth infection. It can come from anywhere. So it basically went into my knee and then just spread like
Yeah.
wildfire from there. I think it was a cut that I had on my other side of my leg that was there prior weeks before, or a week or two before. And I think just got infected, and it went to my left knee, and then just didn't want to come out.
Wow. So and when did you end up retiring?
I retired at the beginning of last year, so Jan 2025. Can you hear me?
So I think I just lost you. I think I just lost you a little bit there. If you can say that again for me.
Sorry, yeah. I retired at the beginning of last year, so Jan 2025 was my last was when I officially retired.
And do you still have any involvement in the sport now, like any coaching roles, or have you gone down a different career path?
No. Yeah, different career path now. I haven't gone back into rugby just yet. There might be a few things on the cards later. Trying to set up my own little rugby academy. Just on the side for now, just building it up in the background. Because I've got a full time job now, which I'm very happy with. So I don't really want to go into the coaching side of rugby or anything in rugby for now. I'm going to build up this little academy that I have going on the side, but obviously we haven't taken off yet. So I'm just busy sort of sorting out logistic stuff and websites and all of that. But Laura, who you interviewed, is helping with a little bit of that, just getting some admin stuff out the way. But I might go back into rugby in terms of maybe doing some.
Keep losing you a little bit here, mate. You're just breaking up a minute. I think the sound does come through, but not quite as clear. So I'm missing a couple of things that you're saying. You back with me?
Back, yeah. It dropped off there for a second. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
We're back.
Back on. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Right. Let's see if that works. Yeah, I'm not actually sure because my Wi-Fi is saying full connection as well. So
Any issues? Yeah, I mean, I've worked on my computer all day today, so I don't know. Maybe, but it should be fine.
Matt, maybe it's this. Maybe it's this app. I don't know. I've been told this is one of the best ones for podcasts and stuff, so that's why I downloaded it. But
Yeah, I don't know.
let's see.
But yeah, I
Right, so
use one.
let's try and
Oh, okay,
pick up. No, I was just saying let's try and pick up where we left off.
sure.
What I was going to ask was obviously you're now. You said you've got a full-time job that you really enjoy. So I wanted you to elaborate on that, and then also, I wanted to know if it was hard for you to go from being a full-time athlete, and training every day to essentially not being able to. Like, was that difficult? Was it a difficult transition for you? And how did you sort of handle it, sort of physically and mentally?
Yeah, so I'll go back to maybe people didn't hear the last one, but yeah, no affiliation with rugby at the moment. Like I said, I am starting my own rugby academy in the background, but obviously I've got a full-time job that I'm very much enjoying now. So no plans to go back to rugby. I'm going to work on my little side project with my academy that's going to run in the background, but fully focused on my career. So I work for Adidas now. I've been at Adidas now for about a year.
Oh, nice.
Very much enjoying it. In terms of missing rugby, when I retired, I wasn't asked to go, kind of thing. It wasn't that no one wanted me. It was that I just couldn't play anymore because my knee was shattered. So I actually couldn't really play. Um,
Yeah.
so I don't know. I kind of have some solace in that it wasn't like I didn't feel like I wasn't wanted in a way. I just couldn't play anymore. So I think that actually made the blow a little bit easier. I think I would have struggled if maybe it would be harder if I could feel I couldn't keep up and I had to sort of leave it. Um, but no, to be honest, I've actually been fine. I haven't really missed it that much. Rugby it's great. I really enjoyed it. It was a good career. But it has its ups and downs. It's a lot of moving around. It's a lot of guys are 2-3 year contracts. So you're moving a lot. It is very cool when you're in it, but I've actually enjoyed. I've enjoyed settling back into Cape Town, into my life here, and you obviously miss certain things. I miss training every day. I miss being in the limelight. Everyone loves being in the limelight, but it's nice settling down back again. And I haven't really had too many drawbacks. I've been lucky enough that I've still been able to train a lot and enjoy some other things that are sporting. So I haven't missed it too much. But every now and then I get a bit of I think it's more that I can't do certain things now. So that's kind of giving me like a bit of a comfort to be like, I had to put it down.
And how have you sort of kept yourself fit now while doing this full-time role? How much less are you training, and have you got a different approach to training nowadays? What sort of keeps you in check?
Yeah, I mean, I just can't train the way I used to train. It's just obviously too time consuming and too hard on the body. But I still train every day, pretty much. I might take a day off every now and then, but I still do a lot of weight training. And now I cycle. So I got the cycling bug bit like maybe a year and a half ago, or maybe a year ago actually, properly. So I've been doing a lot of that. So I probably split my training 4 days a week on the bike and 3 days a week in the gym. So I still train pretty hard, obviously not to the level of what pros do, but yeah, I try and train as much as I can, but then also live a balanced life on the side. But it's I can also get that itch where I can train. I'm so used to training so hard all the time that you have to turn it down a little bit because you've got a full-time job that requires a lot of you mentally. So I can't be you know, full go every day, training twice a day. I've got to also focus on my main priority, which is my work. So it's that balance of being able to train hard, but also train within reason and say like, I can get on the bike and wake up at 5 and ride 80 Ks and come back at whatever, it's 7, 8 and go to work. But am I going to be as productive as I want to be at work that day? Maybe not. Do I gym? Do I do a crazy session? Dude, my gym sessions are usually more low key. It's because it's more actual weight training. But yeah, I try and balance hard enough training that my body still feels good and I'm staying fit. But then having enough energy to still be able to work in the day. But I do keep quite a strict routine. I'm a very much a routine person. I don't like being out of routine. So I keep my routine quite strict, and I don't take too much time off. Um, I'm not I've never been like this. Even when I played as a pro, I don't like to have big swings in my fitness. So I don't like, getting really fit and then dropping down and getting really fit and dropping down. I don't like to have those big um, ebbs and flows. I like to keep a consistent level all the time. And I found that if I just train consistently, I can keep a good base instead of burning myself for 6 months and then dropping off and having to burn myself again. I'd rather just keep that constant level. And obviously there will be little peaks and troughs, but for the most part, I'll keep a good base. So I'm strict on myself that I train pretty much every day, maybe take the occasional day off if I feel like I really need it.
Nice. Good to know that you're managing to keep yourself fit and healthy. Because I know plenty of people that have come out of the professional world and lost themselves. Lost their way. They've they've been so used to one routine, so used to one way of life that they can't manage to snap out of it and then focus on something else. And they put weight on straight away. They're 10, 15 kilos up. And yeah, it's crazy to me that you can have such an active life, a sporting life where it literally is everything, and then go down the opposite route. And the reason why I wanted to ask you that was because obviously with you, I know it wasn't at the end of your career, but obviously you had the Olympics and you went to Rio, you got a bronze medal. And obviously, I want you to elaborate on that experience as much as possible for me here. But did you find that when you came back from the Olympics that you was on such a high from medaling that nothing sort of compared to it after that? Or were you able just to sort of like refocus and shift on to what was next?
I think what you need to understand is, as well, as a rugby player, the Olympics means a different thing to what it means to, like, you've interviewed Laura, my girlfriend. Olympics to her was different to Olympics for me, and because we never grew up. That wasn't our sole goal. Our sole goal was to play for the Springboks to win a World Cup. So to go to the Olympics, I
Yeah,
don't think it was. And listen, don't get me wrong, it was unbelievable. It was great, and you only really appreciate it once you're there. And I want you to speak to people who are your individual athletes or your athletes who focus just on the Olympics. Um, but for us, it's a huge achievement, but I don't think we appreciate it maybe as much as other athletes would, which is weird to say. But I think if you live in the rugby world, your dream is to represent your country and play in the World Cup. That's like your everything. It's to win those, world championships and stuff in rugby. That means a lot to you. But obviously, Olympics it was quite a while ago, 10 years ago now. So it was a little bit of a bittersweet for us as well. We were one of the favorites to win the gold. So, it wasn't like we had a miracle performance and got bronze. We were one of the favorites in the competition. So for us not to get gold was a little bit of a bittersweet one, because we were picked to either, I think it was us and Fiji and New Zealand were the top three. So yeah, it was a little bit of bittersweet moment, but then afterwards you reflect on it and you speak to other people and you share perspectives and you realize how much of a big thing it was to get a bronze. Because some athletes go their whole lives never even been able to go near a bronze medal. So you do have to have this appreciation. It was always a strange dynamic for us as
exactly. Yeah,
rugby players. Yeah, it's a very strange dynamic for us as rugby players because we don't have that same ambition growing up. So things are just put into different perspective for us. But in saying that, though, it was a crazy accomplishment and a crazy thing to do. It was amazing. Um, but yeah, it's a little bit different for us as rugby players and as it would be for an individual athlete. But it was still, what a time. It was amazing.
yeah. And obviously, with South Africa being such a huge rugby nation, as it were, even though you say it wasn't like the pinnacle that you were aiming for, do you still feel that there was a lot of expectation on you guys as a team to perform and to win? Or, did people come away thinking, oh, yeah, we still got bronze and it's not even our main focus?
Oh, no. It was a huge, yeah, huge focus. Yeah, no, it was, the expectation was to get a gold. So we were expected to get a gold. There was a lot of pressure to get a gold. I'm more speaking about our own. I'm saying growing up, you sort of had the ambition of playing in the World Cup. But, if as a South African rugby player, if you're going to a rugby tournament or whether it's the Olympics, Commonwealth Games, World Cup, you're going there to win. So your expectations as a South African rugby player is to go and win.
Yeah.
So there were huge expectations. So we definitely felt that pressure when we went to the Olympics that we are supposed to get gold. That is the goal.
And when you, I mean, again, this is like not to knock your achievement whatsoever, because again, like you say, to even come away with a medal at all is phenomenal.
Mm.
But did you feel that there was any judgment upon you guys when you did return from Rio back to South Africa because you didn't get the gold or not?
Um, I choose my words wisely here. Um, I think people were obviously very happy we got a bronze medal, but I think they would have liked us to get a gold. I think there was people would be disappointed by it, but I mean that's not a confirmation. But I think that people were probably they were happy we medaled, but I think they would have been happier had we got a gold medal, definitely.
And who did you lose out to in the semi final to miss out on the final?
We lost to Great Britain in the semi-final.
No, really.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
genuinely
yeah,
didn't
yeah,
know that, so that's not me trying to rub it in because I'm a Brit. So
yeah.
I
No, they
promise you.
were. I mean,
Did
they.
they?
I'm not. They used to be a very strong. They used to be a very strong side. Obviously, a lot of the. So obviously, Great Britain was a bit different to what they were playing on the circuit because they were England and Scotland that time of Wales. But yeah, they were England had a very
Yeah,
strong side. England were very strong back in the day. Scotland had a few good players. They would be good in tournaments. They were a bit inconsistent, but they were always a tricky game. And Wales had a few years where they were real strong. So I think that year that Great Britain team was probably a top 4 or 5 side in the world for sevens. So they were a very strong side.
yeah. Okay, fair. Yeah, so that's not me trying to rub it in. By the way, I genuinely didn't realize it
No, no,
was Great
no,
Britain that
no.
you ended up playing.
Mm, yeah, yeah.
So
Bittersweet.
I think I read somewhere um, that I think I read somewhere that you um, did you have eligibility to potentially play for Wales? Is that right? I think I've lost you again, mate.
I've made
Back again? Back?
Yeah,
Can you
back
hear
in.
me?
Sorry, yeah, yeah, I can hear you. Sorry, having some technical difficulties
No,
there. That's
no, we're
yeah,
good,
it's
good.
all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I say so. So the
Yeah,
last thing I asked was, yeah, I'm terrible technology wise as well, mate. So I'm the
that's
worst
right.
person to deal with this kind of thing. But um, yeah. So you did have eligibility to play for Wales.
Yeah.
Where did the eligibility come from? And was that ever like a real consideration that you would go and play for Wales, or was it just sort of like media noise and a story to talk about?
My father's Welsh, so my father's side of the family is all from Wales. Hence why I've got the eligibility for Wales. No, there was never really any interest to go and play for Wales. The opportunity was there if I wanted to. But yeah, I always wanted to play for South Africa. The reason there was a bit of noise for a bit was when I was overseas playing in France, potentially going over to Wales and playing for a Welsh club, and then looking to try and make it as a Welsh player. But that was further on down the line, my last few years of playing. So when I was about 30, 31, I was playing in France, potentially wanted to move over to Wales to find a club there. And then and have the potential to play for Wales, but it never quite materialized. So, but when I was younger, no, it was always to play for the Springboks. That was the number one.
Yeah. Do you think that the sort of the international eligibility rules that are in place for rugby, do you think it hurts the game or do you think it helps the game?
Uh, Look, I think it probably, as South Africans, we'll never have to worry about that because we've got such a strong base of rugby. I can see how it hurts developing countries. They want to grow the game a little bit. It's tricky, because I think you can take advantage of the system, um, and there are countries that could do that. But then it's also an hindrance to certain countries to enter the rugby market that don't perhaps have the facilities or the development structure to get players in. So it's tricky. I think you probably have to look at it on a per case basis. Like I've said, as South Africans, you never have to worry about that because you always play for your country. But it would be nice if you could go somewhere. But I think now you have seen there's a lot of South Africans that are playing for Scotland. You can do it. It just takes a bit of time. But I think there's arguments for and arguments against.
Yeah. Which team are you most impressed with in terms of recent development and recent form? If there was, obviously, in the world, you've got your top teams, the ones that people know about. You got you got the All Blacks, you got the Aussies. What teams have surprised you? Whether that be Italy's or France or Argentina or Japan. Who's your sort of, who would you say is your dark horse every time a big tournament comes up?
For sevens now, I would say the last couple of years, Spain. I think Spain's really come a long way in their sevens program. I think they're doing some really good things. I haven't followed a lot of it this year, so I'm not sure how well they did this year. I think they did okay, but in recent memory, they've been very impressive. How they've, not a traditionally rugby nation. They've really built a strong squad over the years, and they've
Yeah.
really done quite well.
I think I just lost you again, mate.
Got it. Back.
We're back.
Yeah. back.
So it's all good, mate. Honestly, don't worry. So you're saying Spain in sevens, and what about the 15s? I know that. I mean, personally speaking, I know that England have, not been in great form recently. Obviously, didn't have a very good Six Nations for sure. But do you still follow like the world scene on the 15s as well? And if there's any teams that have taken your fancy through recent results?
I think Italy did pretty well in the Six Nations. I think they're probably the team that's, if you're looking for an underdog, that's done pretty well. I think Italy's had a pretty good year so far in terms of Six Nations. We'll see how the rest of the year goes, but I think if you looked at it too well, I think they've done pretty well.
If you have you ever do you think you've ever fallen out of love with the sport? Do you think when you've had injuries, have you ever fallen out of love with the game at any point, or did those injuries sort of light the fire more to play more?
I don't think I ever fell out of love with the game. I always enjoy playing it. Still enjoy the game. I don't follow the sport as much anymore that I used to, obviously not being in it. But there was never a point in my rugby career that I didn't have a love for the sport. I came a long way to get there, so I always remember that.
Yeah, fair. I've got two more questions to ask you, mate, just to sort of finish us off.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
One is, when it's all said and done, what do you want people to say and what do you want people to remember about Dylan Sage as a person, but also as a player?
I think as a player, I'd like to be remembered as someone who was a worker, who grafted. Wasn't always the most talented guy, but I always try to work as hard as I can and kill myself to be on the field with some of the guys that I played with. Like I said, I was never always the most talented, but I've always found a way to get myself on the field. As a person, as a rugby player person, off the field, I think I'm a fairly lovable guy. I can be a bit of a hard ass.
Yeah.
I'm not always. I have my sharp edges, but I try and be as nice as I can off the field. One of our coaches always he was always big on being very good on the field, but even better off the field as a person. So I always try and carry that a little bit with me. Now it doesn't always work. I'm not always the best person I can be, but I do try and be as good of a person as I can be and treat others the way I want to be treated.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. And then the last sort of question, you can sort of split it off a little bit as well. So,
Mm.
what advice would you give to any young athletes that are trying to break into, the elite sports side of rugby? And did you ever have any um, role models as you were growing up, whether that be a player or anyone else? And was that something that helps you sort of, continue on with your professional career?
So I think as a young athlete, I think you got to enjoy the sport first. I think the problem with a lot of guys, it becomes a burnout and it becomes too serious too fast. And by the time you're 18, 19, you've already played, you feel like you've had a career already and you're just starting. So, as much as you want to take your career seriously, I think you need to enjoy the sport for what it is to start. And I think when you enjoy the sport, you naturally become better at it. If you enjoy something, you naturally get better at doing it. So, I think you need to find your passion, what sport you like, and what also what you're good at, and find love in that first. But I think that always leads you to work harder. And I think you need to always try and be better. That's why I always try and look at my performances as like, I don't want to just shoot to the moon straight away. That's, I don't want that burnout where I peak and I trough and peak and trough. So I want to try and always continuously getting better. And so it's also having tough conversations with yourself. You need to ask yourself how I can be better all the time. It's learning to adapt, especially when you're younger. Learning those basic skills that you need to learn when you're early, not late. Things like gym and strength and all that fancy stuff always comes later. But I think you have to learn those intangible little skills of rugby, especially that you need, and whatever sport you're playing. Really, this intangible skill that you don't learn by being in the gym. You learn it by being on the field and playing the sport. That kind of stuff you have to learn. Because people can get into the gym and they can be fit and all that, but especially rugby, where it's a skill-based sport, you've got to have those little nuances that only rugby can teach you by playing it. That's the kind of stuff you need to feel natural when you're playing. But
Yeah.
I mean, people, kids have asked me before, what do I have to do? And I think it's just always take yourself seriously, but within that, enjoy yourself. Go play a lot of touch rugby. Go play beach touch rugby. Go, play with your mates on the field, and go and train a lot. The more rugby you play, the better you're going to get at it. When I was playing at school, we would play all the time. I'd train every week, 3 times a week. I would play touch rugby on a Sunday. I would play touch rugby on a Wednesday night. So I was playing a lot of rugby all the time, and that developed a lot of my skills that I could bring across. And then obviously, then the gym came and the conditioning came and all of that. And what was that last one you wanted to split? I think there was a little extra on that question.
Yeah, no, it's great. Definitely what I want to hear. And then obviously the last one was, did you have any role models growing up,
Oh
sporting or
yes.
family wise, that were the pinnacle of what led you into the fitness, as it were?
Um. Yeah, I think I think you have. I didn't think I have. Obviously, when I grew up, my grandfather was a Springbok. I always looked up to my dad a lot, so I did looked up to my
Yeah,
dad. Um, my grandfather obviously was a Springbok, so you wanted to sort of make him proud in that way, and he was a very sporty guy. I think role models. I don't know if I have one specific one. I think I had a few going through. Like I had some cricket idols that I loved. I had some rugby idols that I loved. So, but the older you got, you would change. You'd go, this, I like this person now, I like this person now. But it wasn't just flavor of the month. It was more, I like this person now, but now I'm changing because I've changed my ways and I see myself differently. So I always kind of changed my role models um, along the way. But I always I had the attraction to the guys that had the long careers, that not always the shiny and brightest guys, but it was more the guys who had long careers that were always there, that always showed up. That was kind of always my thing, and I replicated that. But yeah, I think role models, I don't like to always be attached to one person. I like to take from a lot of people, because there's not one perfect person, but you can take things from a lot of different people.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that sentiment for sure. Because myself, I think like one of my idols and my hero will always be my dad for sure. No questions
Mm,
asked, my dad. But then in terms of like the sporting side, I was very similar in terms of not like picking certain things, but there was different athletes from different sports that I really used to like because I just loved to see them
yeah,
compete, and their achievements were just so impressive that it lit a fire. And for me, it was obviously Michael Phelps being one with swimming,
yeah,
being a swimmer. There was Sir Steve Redgrave, an Olympic rower for Great Britain, and then Sir
yeah,
Chris Hoy, an Olympic cyclist for Great Britain.
yeah,
And they were the three main ones for me in terms of the Olympics. And then there was many water polo players that I used to love watching. But in terms of three sort of pinnacle athletes, I used to look at you know um, what they all did, and I was actually I've been lucky enough to meet all three of them as well, which is something that I'm
yeah.
certainly very very happy about. But I understand
Of
your
course.
sentiment there, where you can look and take the best from each one.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah, I
I'm
think,
gonna leave it there, mate. I
yeah.
can't thank you enough, especially for the patience of and coming back on and back in and back out, and obviously technology not being my best friend today. But thank you so much for your story, as it were. Thank you for all the advice that essentially people can take from this chat. It's certainly been it's been interesting for me to hear some different things from a different sporting perspective as well, which is great. I just love
Mm,
hearing about different sports and how they work and the different training sort of methodologies that go into it. So appreciate you taking the time. I will get this out and I'll tag you and everything, and you can share it so other people get to hear your story. And obviously, I just want to wish you the best with everything that you're doing, and obviously wish you the best with your academy that you want to set up. And hopefully, we'll
yeah.
see that shining in bright lights soon, and some big names on the horizon from the youngsters that will come up and through it. So, Dylan, thanks again. Congratulations on an amazing career, and we'll speak soon.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the time. Thanks, man.
No worries, no worries. Huge thank you to Dylan. It really was a pleasure to chat, and we really appreciate it here on The Unfiltered Athlete when people give us time out of their day to tell us about their journey in the sporting world. As always, we're wishing our guest Dylan the best with all his future endeavours, and join us in the next episode. But to do so, please like and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode drop. Take care, and we'll see you all soon.